Growing up as a kid, I don't think I watched any movie more than I watched the Friday the 13th films. Every weekend I'd gather up my dusty VHS tapes and have an all-night marathon. I'd wake up at 4 in the morning and go all day. It drove my parents crazy. Friday the 13th is a coming-of-age movie. You're probably wondering if I've ever seen a Friday the 13th movie before. Well, I'm not talking about the movie specifically, but rather what it was like for me to be exposed to these films at such a young age. Watching an R-rated movie as a kid, I tended to get some respect from the other kids because most parents, let's face it, won't allow their kids to get away with it. My dad had a strange take on it though, and I always respected him for it. He believed that the more you censored your kid from the violence, the more curious we'd get, and the more shocking it would be when we finally did get exposed to it. Needless to say, I grew up a pretty good kid. I never got into fights or anything. I can't even explain the impact these movies had on me as a kid. I can remember dressing up as Jason Voorhees on almost every Halloween. Every October, my mom would take me to the local party store to buy my hockey mask of choice. I'd beat it up a little, put the appropriate makeup on it, and bam, I was transformed. In my film school narrative, Attack of the B-Movies, I even spoofed the Friday the 13th films and acted as Jason while directing. That was a pain in the ass, but well worth it. However, Jason has become such an identifiable horror icon over the years that a lot of people tend to forget that the original killer wasn't Jason at all. It was his mother, Pamela Voorhees, played by Betsy Palmer. Her being cast in the role is almost legendary because at the time, Betsy Palmer was known for more family-oriented roles. The film, and most of the sequels that followed, takes place on Camp Crystal Lake, which the locals have named, appropriately enough, Camp Blood.
Camp Blood? They're opening that place again?
Starting in the 50s, the campgrounds have been plagued with all kinds of mishaps, culminating with the drowning of a little boy, Jason Voorhees, the Mongoloid son of Mrs. Voorhees. Several years later, the owner of the camp reopens it, hoping to bring back some business. A bunch of camp counselors, including a young Kevin Bacon, get hired and offer their support, only to be brutally murdered in the process. It all comes down to a fight between the sole survivor, Alice, played by Adrienne King, and Mrs. Voorhees, who by the end of the film reveals her motives.
You let him drown. You never paid any attention. Look what you did to him. Look what you did to him.
The film has a realistic, gritty quality to it that was never really seen again in any of the sequels. A lot of the time we're given a chilling POV of the killer as it stalks after its prey. This was something that was experimented with in John Carpenter's Halloween, but I thought it was just as effective with this film. Tom Savini supplied the groundbreaking makeup effects, and to this day they have not been rivaled. They're simply awesome to look at. Some people have a hard time understanding the artistic nature of gory makeup, but those who appreciate it tend to agree with me that the gore effects are what really make this film stand out. My favorite death is when Kevin Bacon gets a spear shoved through his esophagus. Ari Lehman was the first actor to portray Jason in the series. Some of you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute, Jason wasn't in the original. Well, that's debatable. He shows up near the end in a dreamlike sequence, nearly drowning Alice in a shocking climax, although it's never revealed whether it's actually him or if Alice is just dreaming the whole time. Either way, it was both a chilling and interesting way to end the film because it leaves you wondering if Jason is still alive or not.
Ma'am, we didn't find any boy.
Then he's still there.
I never understood why critics generally applaud Halloween, but seem to be less favorable with Friday the 13th, which was directly inspired by the former success. True, it does show off a lot of gore, something that was lacking from Halloween, and most critics tend to like that way better. But aren't they being a little prude to dismiss this film simply because it has the balls to show more? In my opinion, this film is more groundbreaking and more terrifying. There's something frightening and eerily mysterious about the woods, which is why there were so many terrible knockoffs of this movie in the 80s. Say what you want about the sequels, but this one is really hard to beat.
You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you?
God damn it, Ralph, get out of here. Go on, get. Leave people alone.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
It's got a death curse.